Hello and welcome to the Lights on a Screen podcast. I am your host, Jacob Blunden, and it's been a while.
Hello, guys. Welcome back.
I don't know if I remember how to do this.
I am going to introduce my panelists. Taylor Robinson, how are you?
Yeah, it's good to be back, gang. Glad we're all here. It feels like a lot has happened since the last time we've done an episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good to be back talking some movies. I'm going to try to not say like every third word, and that's my goal for the episode. We'll see how I do.
Alayna, how are you?
I'm great. My goal for the episode is to not say epic every 3 words, but that's not going to happen because we are talking about some epic movies.
We are. I have a goal of just don't completely screw up, but that's probably
That could mean a lot of things.
I know. So,
Like, that's a very broad goal.
It is. All right. Well, it has been a while. So, what is obviously the biggest thing that's probably dropped between then, movie wise, outside of this is the curveball that I do want to throw that I
Oh,
forgot.
God.
to
I literally,
Jacob.
I literally asked what we were doing,
and
so this wouldn't happen.
And I forgot, but no, this is just a solidarity with the writer's strike going on at the moment.
Yes.
Like, stand up for unions, stand up for rights. This is completely effed right now what's going on. And yes, solidarity with the WGA.
Yeah, all the unions are together, which means the studios and everyone majorly fucked up when you get all of the unions being
Yeah.
like,
This is a big deal. This is a big deal.
yeah,
And
I think it's gonna get pretty ugly, which I kind of hope that it does. Like, I need the studios and everyone who is not willing to come to the table to suffer a lot. That is what I need.
yeah, so it's obviously going to mean it's like there is the human element of people are losing jobs. People are going to go months without work, without pay. There is the human element, and we cannot get distracted from the human element. That is the most important element. But then obviously there is also the element of, okay, what happens now with all the shows? Like, we're seeing SNL, the late shows, all of them indefinitely cancelled.
And then we're seeing the shows who are like, oh, we already have the scripts written. We can do this fine. And then everyone's like, excuse me, have you heard of Heroes Season 2?
Yeah. I hope, because can you remember the last one?
What year?
07.
Can I fucking remember
Okay.
the 07
Okay,
writer's
fair
strike?
enough, fair
I don't
enough.
think 5-year-old Alayna gave a fuck.
So, okay, so
I briefly know though, like because I was like when I was doing the whole like How I Met Your Mother rewatch, and I mean just watching it, and like season 4 or something like
Yeah, season 4
sucked,
is
and
the-
everyone was like, "Why is this such a bad script?" And then it was like it was 07.
yeah, you go
So-
through like the 07 ones, a lot of them. Yeah, Heroes is the best example. There's other examples like Pushing Daisies, and there's some other shows that either were cancelled or came back earlier where they really shouldn't have, or something like Lost, which Lost wasn't overly impacted in the end, but the 4th season's bad because of it. And then you look at the 2009 movies, Transformers, Bond, Dragon Ball Evolution, like a lot of these movies that were tentpole blockbusters, and they're terrible because they didn't have a script. They, the script was written within 30 within 30 minutes, and all out of fear of this writer's strike that's coming. So, like, we're not. Movies at the very moment shouldn't be impacted too much. You're right with TV shows. Lord of the Rings season 2
And House of the Dragon.
and House of the Dragon's going to be rough because they already had to go through a new showrunner,
Yep.
and like they've got a new showrunner on that show, and now they've started filming, and he's gone. So
Yeah. So that's going to get real interesting.
yeah, that is going to get interesting. And then and it's not so much like the people who are like, oh, but they've already written the scripts. But with TV shows, you need the writer on the set. And
They're getting rewritten until while
Yeah.
filming is happening.
Yeah.
Like, scripts are being rewritten still. So
Yeah. So this one feels bigger than 07. This one feels like it's about more, like that it's going to be one that like '07 was I want to say like 120 days or something. Like
It was something like that. Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely triple figure days, and it was a huge one, and it had massive impacts on the industry. I wouldn't be surprised if this is 6 months. I really wouldn't at this point. I think
Like I said, I think it's gonna get ugly.
yeah, we could be looking at around a 6 month strike. So again, solidarity with the WGA and any other unions that decide to also go on strike. But this was warranted. This was needed, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of months what happens. So the media landscape could very much change in the next 6 months, but we'll see. The only other news really that majorly dropped was you two were able to finally get to see your Dune trailer, and me.
Yes.
So talk about what were your thoughts?
Epic.
If this was a video, I would put like a counter in the corner of how many epics we get through this episode.
When I listen back to the episode, I'll do my own count. No, yeah, it was incredible, as I assumed it would be. But I think when did it drop? Like a few days ago. Whenever it dropped, I think I watched it like 10 or 11 times, and I was at work and I was just showing everyone, even if they didn't care. I was like, "Did you see the first Dune movie?" And they were like, "Oh, I think watch this, and I'm just so excited. Everyone looks incredible, and all the acting looks like it's going to be next level. The cinematography looks next level. I looked up flights to Melbourne today to go to Melbourne to see it in IMAX in November, which I'm 99% sure I'm going to do. I did it for Timmy once. I flew to Sydney for a day to go see him. I'll do it again.
We're more than likely driving to Seattle so you can see it with your friend.
Yeah, it's probably going to be, during that time when we're in Seattle, which, listen, I love you, but I need someone that I can actually like sit there and be like, Timothy Chalamet, Austin Butler, like, because you just look at me and you're like, yes, dear. No, I need Lauren to be like,
absolutely,
I get what you're talking about. So look,
because you can get with her on a level where you're like, I can appreciate these are attractive men, but it's just not the same.
No, listen, we're gonna. Timothy Chalamet and Austin Butler are going to be on the same screen at the same time.
Fighting each other.
Most
likely shirtless.
So I need moral and emotional support that is beyond what you can provide when that happens, is all I'm saying.
How are we feeling about bald Butler?
Okay, I'm of two minds about it. One, it's disgusting that they would do that to his hair. Even though it's not real, like it's definitely like a bald cap situation. Because
could you imagine if he was just walking at the Oscars like completely
bald?
No,
they duped us all because he was like walking around in Europe like taking photos with fans, and everyone's like, oh, he still has his hair. Nope. But okay, anyway, we're very quickly getting off track of me actually answering this question. On the one hand, like, it makes me sad because for obvious reasons. But, and I was saying this to Lauren when we were like comforting each other in the Facebook chat about this, I think it really helps because, and not that this would necessarily happen, but it does happen with actors. Like, I really think it'll help him not get typecast. Like having a look that's completely the opposite of what we just saw in Elvis, and completely the opposite of what we're going to get when he's in the Bike Riders later in the year. I think it's really good to kind of have that varied resume. And if he's able to completely disappear into a character like that, like, I think it's really good for him. And I think it'll also be really good just like for the story. Like, did I want to see him go like the Sting route? Obviously, because, you know, we would have seen a lot and it would have been great. But I do think for the version of the story we're getting from Villeneuve, it's exactly what it needed to be. And I haven't read the books. I know that it doesn't exactly fit the description of the book because he definitely has hair in the book from what I've seen people like, you know, deep diving into like what he's supposed to look like and all this stuff. That I don't necessarily care about. It's more, does it fit in the vein of this version of Dune that we're getting? And I really think that it does. I think it's what it needs to be.
I think it's also good for Butler because all the memes and shit that was online of him being Elvis basically, and now he's in a role where he's
Not
completely
good, yeah.
opposite.
Yeah.
So it could be good in that respect as well. But
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to what have we been watching?
I actually have things to talk about
yeah.
this time.
All right. What have you been watching, Taylor?
Okay. So thanks to your mother, I sat down and watched Sense and Sensibility for the
Oh,
first
that's
time.
right. You did too.
Which everyone who knows me is going to be like, I'm sorry, you what?
That was the first time.
For someone who's as in love with like Clueless and Pride and Prejudice and all those films, they're going to be like, I'm sorry, you're telling me that no time in your life did you sit down and watch Hugh Grant in a period piece? What the fuck is wrong with you? And my answer to that is a lot of things clearly are very wrong with me. But I watched that. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Like, the cast is great. Emma Thompson, Kate Winslet, Alan Rickman, and Hugh Grant, like, leading a film, essentially, is peak cinema. Like, just incredible stuff. And I'm a sucker for period pieces. I was not ready for Hugh Laurie to be in it, by the way. That was the best kind of jump scare. That was awesome. But yeah, so it was really good. Has a really great cast, even beyond those 5 that I've named. Like, it's just stacked with really great people. So that one's immediately on the list. And by the list, I mean we'll be watching when I just need to. It'll be added probably to my Pride and Prejudice like list where I'm just like, all right, it's time.
I'm in a mood.
I'm in a mood. So that was the good. And now we have the horrific needs to be thrown into a dumpster and pushed off of a cliff is the next one. I made myself watch Ghosted.
oh yeah. We did name you the ghosted correspondent.
I was the ghosted correspondent, and I did my homework. Unfortunately for me. For everyone else, I did it so you don't have to. Although I really want Jacob to watch it because I just kind of need to know. I need to know your thoughts
told,
on it.
I need you to watch it.
So
how long is it?
It is 120 minutes.
Oh my
It's
god.
2 hours.
It is too damn long. It needed to be at max 90 minutes. Like at the it should have been less than that, but it's 120 minutes. And listen, it makes you sit there and go, did I dream that Chris Evans and Anna de Armas know how to act? Did I make that up in my head that they like have real careers where they're talented? Because this movie wants you to believe that this is like an adult community theater amateur like project.
God.
Like they have no chemistry, like zero, which is wild going from seeing Knives Out.
Yeah, I was about to say.
This. It's like they've never met each other before, but in like the worst way. It feels like, I don't know if you guys have seen online where it's like no scene in this movie makes it look like they were ever in the same room together. Like,
yeah, I've seen people say
pretty
that.
much.
Okay.
It feels like that. The script is horrific. Like, anytime there's dialogue, you're like, did Chat GTP write this dialogue? Because that's what it feels like.
Welcome to a writer's strike, Hollywood.
No, but this was before. This is before. Wait, I don't even want to. Nope, we're not going down that road. And it's just like the needle drops are some of the worst I've ever heard in my life, which is why I want Jacob to watch it, because there's nothing that bothers him like more than that.
Bad needle drops ruin a movie for me.
The song choices are so odd, and where they put them is just like.
Are they really modern or not? Like old songs?
They're not modern. They almost feel like, so they're older songs, the ones I can remember at least, because after 2 weeks.
Trauma blocked it.
Yeah. They're older songs, but like there's one, if anyone listening to this has seen it, you know what I'm talking. There's like a car chase scene like out in the desert where might be the worst needle drop I've ever heard. And maybe I hallucinated this, but it's an old song, but it almost sounds like a karaoke like,
oh no.
I don't know if it's like the way that it's mixed or if it's like a weird cover, but almost sounds like the original. I don't know. Like, I don't know, but it was bad. Like, it was real bad. And then it just like, I don't even, okay. here's the other problem. And Jacob brought this up without having even watched it, because other people have been talking about it. If this role isn't played by Chris Evans and it's played by someone who's not like conventionally Hollywood attractive and charming and everyone's in love with, this is like a stalker, like horror movie. Like, this isn't a rom-com. This is like, oh, this girl is in a trouble. like he like, you know, gets ghosted by her after one date, and he like every single day he sends her like 30 text messages a day. Like, and then he figures out that he has a way to like track her because he left like something like with her that she has, like an inhaler or something, and like he can track it.
Look on Alayna's face.
So he like looks up on the phone and sees she's in London, and then his family is like, wouldn't it be so romantic if you just went to surprise her in London? Even though she hasn't responded to any of your messages in like however many weeks. And you're supposed to be like, oh, well, that's cute, right? Because Chris Evans is like, and I'm just sitting there like, girl, if someone texted me 30 messages a day and I hadn't gotten back to them, and then they tracked me and followed me to surprise me in London, like, I don't care if you look like Chris Evans, like that's bad. That's a bad situation. And then because he just shows up, he gets mixed up with the fact that she's, you know, a spy or whatever, and then the people who are after her like think he's like someone else, and then so she has to like drag him along and make sure he doesn't die.
I would not care.
But no, I know. And then she has to like protect his pathetic ass through the whole movie, and he's just not but he's not even charming. Like, I don't know what they did to Chris Evans, but it's like it's just bad. Like,
wow.
It's really, really, really bad. And honestly,
who wrote this?
I tapped out mentally about probably 90 minutes into it. Like, if you asked me how it ends, I legitimately couldn't tell you. Like, I remember about 90 minutes worth of what actually happened, and then I got nothing. So you're welcome that I watched that for everyone out there so that you don't have to do it, because I cannot recommend anyone watch this except Jacob, because I need to know.
Yeah, it's the same writers as like Deadpool and Zombieland, so it doesn't surprise me that their idea of a rom-com is that.
Yeah, so that was a
Isn't
real
it amazing to think that
time.
this went from a director who won someone an Oscar?
Yeah,
technically,
technically.
even though he's not
credited. Yeah,
you believe should have won someone an Oscar.
Yeah,
in 2019.
Yep.
At minimum, should have been nominated, and then this one.
I would love to know what actually happened with this movie.
We're talking about Dexter Fletcher, who directed.
Yeah, for all our listeners,
who directed Bohemian Rhapsody and
he was the executive producer of Bohemian Rhapsody.
He was once Singer had been fired, he came in and did it, but he couldn't be credited. So majority of Bo Rap is his.
So anyway, I am in pain because we spent so many years after Knives Out being like, oh, wouldn't it be great if they were in a rom-com together? I'm never I'm never asking for anything ever again. Not ever. Like, I will never be like, oh, wouldn't it be good? Nope.
Mouth shut.
Mouth shut.
Not until you see the movie.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing I've been watching, I'm almost done. I have like 2 episodes left, but I've been watching the Welcome to Wrexham series, which, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a sports documentary series, and it's about Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney buying Wrexham AFC, which is a football club, a Welsh football club. And I started watching it because, spoiler alert to everyone, Wrexham got promotion. Like, they got promoted into the higher league after this last year, like a couple weeks ago, basically. So I went back, and this documentary follows the season before that, like the year of soccer before that. And it's a really cool series. It's actually, it does talk about Wrexham as a football team, and it talks about, the fact that it's the 3rd oldest professional football team in the world, and like it gives you that kind of history. But it also really like introduces you to the town and like the Welsh culture. And there's just, it's really in depth on the community and spending time with fans who followed this club for, you know, like 80 years. And it's just really cool. It's really interesting because it does focus on the soccer, but it really focuses on like the whole picture. And it's really cool. I'm excited to finish the last 2 episodes up. And then it has been confirmed they're doing a second season, which I'm super excited about because that means we'll actually get to see the footage of the season where they do get promotion and they actually win the league, which is going to be really awesome. But yeah, that's all I've been watching. I know it's been like 3 weeks and I've watched three things, but it's better than what I have been doing. So
It's better than me, where I have been sitting down and watching Death Note at the moment.
see, but I'm proud of you because
I actually have watched
because you're actually no because God, I think it was when we first started dating, like 5 years ago, that you sat down and wanted me to watch it with you. And we got really into it. We watched like 3 episodes. Like, oh, this is really cool. And then we just never, we just never watched it again. And you've been wanting to. So I'm like stoked that you're actually sitting down.
I've done majority of Death Note before, but this is the furthest I've ever gotten. Well, like my current watch is the furthest I've ever gotten through it. Like, and so I've just sat down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do Death Note because I want to try and get more. There's a lot of anime that I kind of want to get into and like, okay, actually start getting back into anime and going through it all. And Blake gave me some really great suggestions, but this was one that I just wanted. I was like, okay, I'll cross this one off and then I'll start going into those. And I love this show. It's just so cool. It's so awesome. It's really messed up, but really interesting and highly original. Like I've seen the terrible movie. Do not watch the Netflix movie, please. I'm begging you, don't watch it. It's terrible. But if the show is on Netflix, it's really good. Go watch it.
Would you be surprised? Yeah, I was gonna say, would you be surprised to know I've watched like, how much of it is there?
There's 37 episodes.
I've watched like a good chunk.
Yeah.
Because in like 2015, I had a crush on this goth boy and he loved Death Note. And so I was like, yeah, same. Research. When I was like 13 years old. But yeah, it is really good from what I remember.
Yeah, no, it is really good. So yeah, I'm a couple of episodes away from finishing part 1. So yeah.
Slow.
All right, let's now dive into the remainder of what have we been watching.
I watched a lot. I won't name it all. If you want to know what I've watched, follow me on Letterboxd at Alayna Violet. But I will just be mentioning a few. Mainly like some of the new releases that some people haven't watched yet. But it's fine. I'll give you a pass. First being Evil Dead Rise, which I don't think you two are just you're never watching.
Never seeing it.
I've had to give out so many refunds at work for people just being like, nope, too much.
No, I know me. You never would have anyway.
I literally, I couldn't handle Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
No. Too much.
Yeah. No.
So,
never watched this movie.
no.
Yeah. Like, I remember afterwards you were just like, oh, you're screwed.
Yeah, I was like, if you can't even sit through bones and all, you cannot. I think they probably would have used like 100 gallons of fake blood for this shit. But anyway, I digress. Blake and I were giddily laughing along the whole time. But yeah, it was really good. If you're a fan of the Evil Dead franchise, you're going to love it. I had only seen the first one prior to this, like quickly before I had to like race off to the screening. It definitely has a lot of callbacks and shares a lot of the same like humor, as well as kind of some through lines of just thematically and stylistically how the first ones look, which I really appreciated. But it's also just like really good acting from the Beth Lily Sullivan. Nope. Alyssa Sutherland. Who plays Ellie. And she, if you've watched the movie, you know what I mean. Mother is mothering. And just goes ham, and I'm excited to see her more in more horror movies, because she this could be a breakout for her, to be honest. But yeah, I saw it so long ago. I haven't thought about it since. So I liked it. I didn't love it, but if you're a like diehard horror fan, I was talking to my friend at work and he's like completely horror head, like everything about horror he just loves, and he really loved it and saw all the callbacks to the original, like what came before it. So if you like that, you're gonna love this. Then blah 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 blah. I watched Beau Was Afraid. I get to talk about Beau Was Afraid. I wrote so many notes about this movie, ready to talk about it on the podcast. So
That was amazing.
you guys also haven't seen this, so
No.
I'm about to sell it to you. I will just say Ari Aster is like probably top 3 directors for me. It's what's between like Greta Gerwig, Jordan Peele, and Ari Aster, which is really funny because they all have only like 2
I
or
was
3
going to
movies
say,
each.
I love how your top filmmakers are 1 from the last 5 years
Yes.
and 2 have no movies.
It's certainly recency bias, I'll say that, but like they are goated directors, you can't deny it. But yeah, Ari Aster cements himself as like one of the upcoming auteurs of his craft, and if Martin Scorsese said it, and if you all want to listen to Martin Scorsese, then listen to him now as well. He just has incredible vision, and his direction in this specifically is like off the rails, but that's what makes it so good. Like the first act is in like city area where it's just absolute chaos. Like so much is happening. There's like a scene on like Beau is running across a street, and just when it happened, I just thought about the direction of all the side characters and background characters and everything they are doing. There's like 20 different people doing different crazy fucked up shit. And just like thinking about directing that would be insane. And the framing and the blocking of all the characters and the like cameras as well was awesome to watch. And that kind of happened the whole way through, which was really, really admirable. Certainly also takes inspiration from auteurs that came before him, like Lynch and Tati, and he said himself that he didn't consciously take inspiration from them, but once he watched the movie, he was like, "Oh, yep, I am them." And if we want to discuss genre, like backing off that, I don't even know what you'd call this.
So that's the thing. Having not seen it, I still have no idea. What is it?
It's not a horror.
So that's
But
that's my thing.
there's elements of it that are like scary.
Okay, because the R rating has me so confused.
So I literally wrote down comedy ? Thriller ? Horror ? Drama ? Like
Right.
it's literally basically everything.
Okay, basically what I'm saying is the R rated justified in that it's gory and violent, or is it more just uncomfortable?
I don't even know because I didn't notice that much gore and violence, but also that's just me
Yeah,
who
that's fair.
doesn't care about that stuff. I should have thought about that more when watching it, but I think it is just there's like it's all the like the nudity and coarse language and violence and also just fucked up shit happening
Yeah.
like that a 15-year-old probably can't go watch this
Yeah.
movie.
Because like Midsummer's also R, and that I look at Midsummer and I go, I've seen worse MA movies.
Yeah.
Like there's worse horror movies that are MA. Like I'd say Barbarian or something like that is probably worse than
I think it's also
Midsommar.
the like themes of Midsummer as
Yeah,
well. Like
yeah.
the meaning behind it, I guess,
Yeah.
would be a bit too much for a 15-year-old to grasp. But yeah, speaking about it being a comedy, it is so funny. Like
Really.
Blake and I were the only ones laughing in our screening, but like everyone else is just boring, I guess, because it was so funny and I did not expect to be laughing that much. And then onto horror. Yeah, like I said, 10% of the film is scary. And not even that much. And when it is scary, like it is, and then it just like almost jump cuts into something that's so hilarious. So it's like I said, like it just goes crazy and ham. And also because of Joaquin's performance does this movie work so well. Like it's not career best. A lot of people are saying it is career best, and not at all is it career best. But I think that people are saying that because it is such a bonkers role, and with a lesser actor, it would not work. So I think Joaquin just knows what he's fucking doing, and like pulled off the role. So everyone thinks it's career best, but it's not. Go watch her and then come back. But that's kind of all I have to say and all I want to say, because you kind of just need to watch it. But also, like, all the bitches on TikTok that are like, I don't even know how to review this movie, and it's just like crazy and wild, and I honestly didn't think it was that crazy as people are saying it is. So going with that also. But yeah, I feel like I just said a whole bunch of nothing, but I loved it. I truly loved it, and definitely in the first half more than the second half, which usually just happens with a 3-hour movie anyway. And there was definitely parts of it where I thought it could end, but then it went on for another hour, but that hour was justified. So like, it's a 3-hour movie that doesn't slog at any points, to be honest. Like, there's some down moments, but they are like, shit's still happening and it's still exciting and entertaining. So I would definitely recommend it if you feel like a mind-boggling, crazy adventure is for you. But if not, I guess just like wait till it's at home so you can like pause it and walk away and come back. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that on the internet because like support movie theaters. But I also just don't think it's playing in movie theaters anymore. Maybe at like Palace at 9:30 at night. But
I wouldn't see this at 9:30 at night.
yeah, that would be a lot. But yeah. Beau is Afraid, epic movie. I love Ari Aster, and I'll literally just anything he does, whatever he wants, I'll have it. What else do I want to talk about? I watched too much. I'm just gonna rapid fire. I watched Suzume, which is the new film from Makoto Shinkai, director of Weathering with You and Your Name. I haven't watched either of those movies, and I've been really meaning to. So going into this kind of without knowing what his style is like was really awesome, because it was so ethereal and dreamlike, and I was just blown away by the visuals of the animation. But the story itself kind of let me down. I'm not a fantasy person, so the first half of the setup and the introduction to the characters and everything I loved, but then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I can't keep watching a chair like fighting people. Like, I can't keep doing this. If you know, you know. So, but yeah, I did enjoy it. So I would definitely recommend that if you are an anime fan, and if you loved like Weathering with You and Your Name, I'm sure this will scratch that itch. Then I rewatched Perks of Being a Wallflower. We're not going to talk about it. Then when I'd watched that, Jacob texted me.
Within like I saw now watching, but like she put something about watching Perks, and I just immediately went, "You okay?"
I was like, yeah. No, I actually was okay. I just needed a warm hug, you know, and that movie is a warm hug, which everyone goes like, you think that movie's like optimistic? Like, I don't know. Everyone gets like weird when I say it's like a comfort movie, because everyone else is like, it's so sad, and I'm like,
not really.
I guess because I guess for people that aren't like that and that see Charlie and they're kind of like, oh, that poor little boy.
Yeah, and I
instead of like being that character, you know what I mean?
I don't know, man. If a movie doesn't have me sobbing and wanting to die, it's not a comfort movie to me.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I sit there and watch Titanic and go, yep.
Yeah, 100%.
Killing it. Everyone's like, how is that a comfort? I'm like, you don't understand. Like, just leave me alone. It's
Don't
fine.
even ask me. Yeah. I ventured to Goma, the Gallery of Modern Art here in Australia, Brisbane. And they have a like retrospective of Juliette. I'm gonna butcher her last name, Binoche, whatever it is. I can't speak French. And they had a double feature of 3 Colors Blue and Certified Copy, which I knew these were going to be Kino, but I didn't know what Kino I was in for, because my God, like 3 Colors Blue, I have been wanting to watch that like 3 Colors trilogy for the longest time. And so I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to get jump started when it's playing at Goma. And it was incredible. And basically it's really fucking depressing. It's about woman who loses her child and husband in a car crash and just like is depressed for the whole movie because she's suffering with the grief that she has to face. And there's a lot of blue in this movie because she is sad.
Wow.
And there's like I was like laughing on the inside because there's a scene where she's like swimming in a blue pool, and it's like metaphorical, obviously, and it just reminded me of when your English teacher is like, "Why are his curtains blue?" Because he is sad. This is a metaphor. But it was in the most epic way. So I really recommend that movie, but with caution because it is very depressing. But I digress. Then we moved on to Certified Copy, which is like really playful and fun. So it was like a great chaser actually, and I was like smiling and laughing the whole time. It's basically this woman lives in Tuscany, and she meets a like middle-aged English writer who's like in there to promote his latest book. And they kind of go on this like before midnight-esque adventure across just like through Italy, and talking, and they are going on about like what's like art, and they have a lot of conversations about art and philosophy and what's a copy and what's an original, and how do you know something's a copy, how do you know something's an original. They have like repeated conversations about this with certain pieces of art and like around Italy. And then at one point they're sitting in a cafe and he goes outside to take a call, and the cafe owner is like, "So is that your, like, how long have you guys been married?" And then she just goes with it, and then they act like a married couple for the whole movie. But then at one point you're kind of like, are they actually married and have been just were like faking not being married, or is it the other way around? So like the lines kind of get blurred for you. But yeah, the acting in it is incredible, and the script is just magnificent. So that was also like a 5-star movie. I was blown out of the water, and I seriously recommend it to anyone who's just looking for a fun movie that, if you like the Before movies, you'll definitely like this because it's very conversational and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll shut up and talk about Polite Society just really quickly because it's fun, it's funky, it's a debut from Nita Manzoor, and she just if you have a sister also, you'll really love it, because I have a sister who is wanting to get married desperately, and so it really spoke to me because this is about like a little sister who her big sister is like down in the dumps, and then basically she gets married off to this douchebag guy, and her sister's like, I don't like you. I know something's up with you. And she's just trying to find dirt on him, and that's all I'll say, because this movie goes fucking bonkers in the, like, you would not expect where it goes. I mean, Jacob might, because you know everything. So you'll probably be like, yeah, obviously this and this and this. But like, I would like to believe, when it happened, I was like, I would like to believe that Jacob doesn't know that this would happen, because it's, yeah.
We'll have you report back.
I haven't seen any trailers or anything for this movie, so yeah.
Yeah, I think I watched one trailer. It like nothing about it, like the promotion gives it away, like at all. So it's good, and it's a really good action comedy. Some badass female leads. As soon as I got here, I was like, Taylor, you need to watch Polite Society. It's right up your alley. So it's a very Taylor movie. So if you like how Taylor talks about movies, you'll like this movie.
This is a ringing endorsement.
But yeah, that's kind of it. I rewatched Rushmore last night because shout out to Palace. They're doing a Wes Anderson retrospective, and that movie is slept on way too much. That's an awesome movie.
I like Rushmore.
I think it's because it's early Wes Anderson. They do what?
Nah,
Don't shake your
I
head.
don't like Rushmore. It's fine.
Well, okay, cool. I'll shut up.
Hey, you're about to watch the one that I completely love. That's my favorite Wes Anderson movie, and you're just like, it's the fucking worst.
I don't think it's the worst. I do. Okay, it's time to out myself. The Royal Tenenbaums is my least favorite Wes Anderson movie. Simply because I watched it and I was like, snooze. I don't care.
See, that's Life Aquatic for me. I
That's
do
fair.
not like Life Aquatic.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah.
That one's like not as good as everyone says it is.
Yeah,
but it's still good.
Could not get through that one.
I just love Willem Dafoe in that.
Um, yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure that's the. I'm trying to see. I haven't seen French Connection yet. They're
Connection,
no, not French.
the French
I haven't,
Dispatch.
yeah, I haven't seen French Connection either. The classic movie. I still haven't seen that one. Yeah, no, I haven't seen French Dispatch.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, no, I still haven't seen that. But everything, all the other ones I've seen now. Yeah.
Well, I know you live very far from Palace, but get yourself to Palace and go see these movies.
I did it last time. I did it when they did it before French Dispatch.
Did
did-
Palace or Dendy?
I think
It was
Dendy did
Dendy.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
No, it was Dendy. Yeah, they
Yeah.
did all of them.
Yeah,
so
true.
I did all but the two I had already seen in cinemas, which was Moonrise and
Grand
Grand
Budapest.
Budapest. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's me.
All right. Well, that is what we've been watching this week.
The last 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Car
true.
this
The last
week.
3 weeks. Let's move on to one of the bigger movies of the year. I want to say. I think it's
Yep, for
yeah. We
sure.
are now obviously going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm Star-Lord. I formed the Guardians. Met a girl, fell in love. That girl died, but then she came back. Came back a total dick.
Oh, please. He left out some important information, but that is the gist of it.
Still reeling from the loss of Gamora, Peter Quill rallies his team to defend the universe and one of their own, a mission that could mean the end of the Guardians if not successful. That is a really weird,
That is
really,
a horrible
really
synopsis.
weird. That's okay. That is a synopsis that is trying to hide behind what the inciting incident of the movie is, and
Yeah.
we'll get to that in spoilers.
It's trying to make you think it's just a copy paste of
Yeah.
another Guardians movie.
Yeah, like it's trying to hide this thing happens,
Yeah.
and it doesn't want to say that. That's fair. Taylor, what did you think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3?
So I said this in my letterbox review that I wrote, but Guardians Volume 3 reminded me of why I fell in love with MCU films in the first place. Like the few releases we've gotten before this, and even some before that, like they really had me questioning if it was going to be a thing where I would enjoy new MCU films or if I was just going to have to keep going backwards to actually find ones that I really liked. And this one really surprised me. I like the other two Guardians films quite a bit, but this one for me really hit every note that it needed to hit for it to be not only a successful movie in terms of achieving what I think it set out to, but a movie that really just like pushed all the right buttons for me personally. It's first of all, the Guardians of the Galaxy films, regardless of anything else, have some of the best needle drops just ever in film. Like they just use music so beautifully in terms of the storytelling, but also, I mean, it's kind of genius the way that they use music as almost like a shadow or a mirror that always follows Peter Quill through the stories and is very much tied to him as a character, but then it's also kind of ushering the rest of the story along. I think it's a really cool companion character is what I would call it to Peter Quill in these movies. And it's always really effective. It was really effective here. I was personally attacked by San Francisco by the Mowglis randomly popping up in this movie. That is a song I listen to in the car pretty much all the time and have for like years and years and years now. And I never would have bet any amount of money on that ever popping up in an MCU film. So I was just like, they play like 5 seconds of it and then it cuts to another scene. And then I was like, did I just hallucinate that? And then eventually it goes back to it. And I was like, oh my God. Anyway, that was just a little bit of a personal note for me. That was a really weird experience. But this movie, I think the strongest pillar of it, and there are a lot of really strong things about it. But I think aside from the music, the strongest element of it and why it works the way that it does is it understands how to balance the Guardians MCU kind of humor and the really big emotional punches that it's dealing to you, and it balances them really well. And unlike a lot of MCU films recently, it's not undercutting itself. It's not giving you this big emotional moment and then throwing in a joke because it immediately needs you to be laughing again. Like, it has some really brutal visual moments, but also really brutal mental and emotional moments. And it really lets you sit with them, and it really makes you confront them. And I really, really appreciated that a lot because humor is such a subjective thing. And there's one Guardians movie where I really like the humor, and there's one that doesn't work as well for me. And this one I feel like strikes a good middle range of having good humor, but not overplaying its hand. And I just really appreciated the fact that it feels like what the end cap of a trilogy should feel like for me, especially with the kind of story that they were going to have to tell with where the Guardians were at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, I completely agree. First of all, speaking of needle drops, I need to talk about the epic. Just said epic again. Needle drop of "Creep" by Radiohead.
Yes.
With Rocket walking and sulking and singing. Yes,
The Guardians movies
amazing.
have some of the best openings.
Yes, genuinely.
Oh.
That was just such a good opening with
Yeah.
Rocket, like, especially
Walking through
being
and singing "Creep," like just yeah.
Creep. Oh, it's just so good, and especially like sets up because Rocket is pretty much the heart of this story, and which if you watch the trailer, you know that. Like, and I'm still glad that. I'm glad that he was the heart of the story because I've always loved that stupid little raccoon, and I am glad that he just like had a moment to shine because I don't like he's kind of all the Guardians, like Star-Lord and Gamora definitely like have been the two central ones. The rest are definitely central, but just kind of there. And this movie definitely let Rocket take the front foot in terms of where the plot goes, which I was very excited about because I've always thought he's the funniest little thing ever. And anyway, that's just my love for Rocket. Now I'll actually review the film. I think this trilogy has been consistently like one of the best things about the MCU and has always kept me coming back. Whenever I have like an MCU rut where I'm just like kind of done with it, I'll always just think of the Guardians the franchise within the franchise, I guess, because honestly, they can kind of stand alone.
Oh yeah, all three of these.
Like
movies.
you take them out, and you don't really. There
Yeah.
might be some things that like you have to know this from a separate movie, like Infinity War or something like that.
No,
but like
this one, I think, especially
Yeah.
more than any, like you need to know what happened to Gamora in this one.
Yes.
Like that's the only thing I'd say you
But
need
if someone fills you in on, hey, this is what happened with Gamora, I think you could pretty much.
and Nebula, like you need to know that like Nebula turned.
I mean,
there's some jokes that like might make more sense
Yeah.
if you know the plot line, like the backstory. But like, yeah, these can definitely stand alone at least a little bit, which is awesome. And yeah, I've always loved these characters and had a soft spot for them and their like silly antics. And it's probably just because of James Gunn. Like, this movie has really made me realize that he's like one of the best directors we have in the MCU, and it's really sad. Me with DC, I guess I'll just have to start watching DC movies because.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have a very different opinion on James Gunn, but I'll get to that.
Interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, Jacob's gonna be the controversial one. On
Cool.
this episode.
Well, I love James Gunn as a director, and he's like the only reason I cared about the Suicide Squad. Because the way he uses the camera in action sequences and just in general. And there were some really cool shots, like that kind of took me out of it, but it was cool with like the quick pans and
Yeah.
like office style almost kind of like like moving between characters as they were speaking. That was like really cool and really fit. And thanks to his direction and screenwriting, Taylor kind of mentioned it, we get like a very balanced movie where there's multiple points where characters split up and go on separate adventures, but it never feels choppy and always ensures that the characters are moving with purpose and intent, which I feel like in MCU movies of late, characters kind of split up and then come back together and nothing's actually happened. So that was really nice to have. It was just like, I wrote in my notes, as Harry Styles says, it feels like a movie. And it does. Like, we actually got a movie. Why? Don't shake your head at me. It feels like a movie. And I really appreciated that because I'm just sick of the mush that we've been getting from this franchise. And I feel like, I guess there's definitely moments where James Gunn's direction is overshadowed by Marvel. And that happens in every movie. Like, we got that in Doctor Strange where it was Sam Raimi, but Sam Raimi had to agree with Marvel's terms. So he couldn't go as wild as he wanted to, kind of thing. And we also see that with the Suicide Squad where like that was going ham and crazy, and he probably could have done that in a movie like Guardians, but Marvel kind of has to keep it PG.
So, okay. I'm going to bounce off that one.
Okay.
I think James Gunn's at his best when he's PG-13.
Okay.
I don't like James Gunn R-rated. I'm not a fan of his R-rated movies. I think when he is forced to be constrained and forced to have to come up with clever humor that isn't just saying the F word, and I think it can be very clever and
I get
very
what you
funny.
mean, yeah.
I think
Definitely.
he works better in a PG-13 constricted environment than, because I did not like the Suicide Squad.
Okay.
And I don't like Peacemaker. And I don't like admittedly, I haven't seen Slither. So that's one I do need to watch.
Would you say, do you mean this by like just comedy or all of it?
I think comedy, but he uses gross out as a way to shock you into a laugh, and I think a lot of the times it doesn't work.
Okay.
Personally, I think it's just, it comes across as cheap. And that's kind of how I felt a lot with the Suicide Squad, was a lot of the moments where he would undercut. And it's my other big problem with Guardians 2. And it's dragged into this movie for me, which something I took into the movie and kind of had a bit of a guard up for it. But this movie doesn't do it, which is he has moments that are really heartfelt and really emotional moments that are getting it's the audience to get into a moment, and then he'll undercut it with a bad joke. And he does it several times through Guardians 2, and he does it several times in The Suicide Squad. And I was coming into this movie going, there's a few of them in this movie where I was like, oh, there's going to be the bad joke, it's going to be the bad joke. And then it doesn't come, and it's like, oh, you actually let me have that moment. I do like this movie. I think this is a very good movie. It's probably the best MCU movie we've had since Shang-Chi. I think it's too long. I think the villain is very one note. I wasn't a fan of the villain at all. But it did its main job, which was give us a fitting end to these Guardians. And I think the last 45 minutes or 40 minutes of this movie is probably the most emotionally fulfilling I have had from an MCU since Endgame. I think it is so well handled and so well done. This is everyone getting their moment. This is everyone having that goodbye, that that ending, that it's so well done that it's like, yep, this is the best the MCU has done in terms of that since Endgame. And where it's emotionally satisfying. And that, so on the whole, this movie was very emotionally satisfying. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it is a very, very good movie. I think it's a very good MCU movie. There are problems I have with it. I think it's far too long. I don't like the villain. I think it undercuts itself in some. I think I think the weight of itself does kind of collapse in on itself at points where it's trying to do a little too much.
Like what?
I can get to that in spoilers.
Okay.
But because there's certain character moments where I think it's trying to do a little too much. But that also comes from there are so many characters in this movie. Like there is a lot. Like the Guardians have gone from 5 to about 9.
Yeah. And which is why I was also like, I didn't fully give it like a 5-star because there's a lot to deal with. And that's just like MCU at the moment where you have so many characters you need to juggle and sometimes they can fall through the cracks and it's not all going to be handled unless it is another like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And no one wants that.
So we'll go into spoilers because there's a few things I do want to talk about, but this is your spoiler alert for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
So, and I put this, I messaged so both of you this. The one, like, it does it a few times in the movie, but like one big moment for me is when Mantis has her big moment and then it immediately goes from Mantis's big moment with the creatures that she's like controlling and everything, immediately goes from that straight into Kraglund's big moment with the arrow. And it's just kind of like, we have literally just done this and you've not gone to another part of the moon. It's things like that where it's like you are starting to fall under
Like
the weight
the same
of yourself.
kind of.
It's the same. It's the same
thing,
beat.
yeah.
The same beat. The same emotional beat that you are giving me, and like the same. They're finally like develop
element and
and learning their power. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that doesn't resonate with me as much as something like the moment for me that got me, because I was pretty good. I didn't get teary eyed at all, but there was a moment that nearly broke me, and it's when and I have forgotten her name again. Nebula. Wow. It's when Rocket wakes back up and says, and Nebula hears him for the first time, and the way she says Rocket, I just nearly lost it. I was like, I don't know. There was something about it that was just this family moment. It was so perfect and so wonderful. I was just like, that is Guardians, and that was perfect. So that I think what this movie does so well is family.
Yeah.
I think the thing about this franchise better than any other franchise has ever done is found family. What does found family mean? And what these 3 movies do is so perfect. That is its biggest strength. But yeah, Taylor, do you have any other spoiler talk that you want to mention?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do it. I guess for me, okay, I want to, we kind of talked about this, you and I, Jacob, but for me, I don't know if I would bring a kid to see this movie. And I know that that's kind of like a hot button debate with superhero films of like they're supposed to be for kids or they're not supposed to be for kids or whatever. And I know every kid is different, but watching this film, I sat there and went, I'm like hardcore being forced to deal with some traumas watching this. I don't know if I could bring a kid to watch it just because like some of Rocket's friends, like visually, like if I had seen that kind of stuff as a kid, like I don't know if I would have been able to handle that. And just some of like the psychological elements of like the animals like being experimented on and what Rocket is mentally and emotionally dealing with. I thought it was handled beautifully. Like the moments where Rocket is with his friends in the cage and they're talking about seeing the sky. And
that was
it was beautiful.
Yes. I would the entire time, and I think that might be why I'm a little. It's too long. Is because I just kept wanting to go back to them. Like the gaps between getting the flashbacks were too long for me because I was so invested in Rocket's story
Yeah.
that it was like I don't care. I don't care what's happening with them right
But
now.
you can't do that.
I know.
Like, that's
yeah.
you trying to make it the movie that
No,
you
and I
want
get
rather
that.
than the
I
movie
get
it
that.
needs to
No,
be.
and I get that. I just am kind of like that. Meanwhile back at the ranch, and it's the storytelling beat where if you're gonna do that, you got to have both be as interesting as each other.
Well, I think they are.
And but I wasn't as interested in Peter and their story. It wasn't as interesting for me, and that's kind of where I was like, I just wanted to get back to Rocket's story because that was interesting and emotional and was hitting hard.
But I think that's. Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Okay.
That's just how I'm going to frame this because I don't know how else to do it. I think that it works because I think it was the perfect way to balance the emotion and the comedy. When you're getting Rocket's story and you're with him and his friends, you're getting the hard gut punch of emotion. And when you're with the rest of the Guardians, you're getting the humor moments that you want out of a Guardian movie. And by doing it mostly that way, you're not running that risk of undercutting the emotion with the humor because they're pretty, not always, but they're pretty separate for a lot of the movie. And I don't know. I think it worked really well because I think it's good that this wasn't a copy paste of another Guardians movie. What I mean by that is we do get Quill's story in this movie, obviously, because he's still dealing with Gamora and that whole, like, his own family trauma and that kind of stuff. But it was really refreshing to see a Guardians movie that's not just about Quill. And all the other characters kind of have to fall into line of what his story is going through. And I really, really appreciated that aspect of it a lot. And I think that it was also really nice to actually get to see Drax and Mantis and some of the other characters like having to deal with a lot of their shit. Like they're not just being sidelined as like Drax has a funny line here and Mantis is like gonna do this thing here. Like the scene with Gamora and not Gamora, Nebula and Mantis and Drax, where they're basically just calling him stupid to his face. Like that scene, like obviously has a small undercurrent of humor in it, but that's a really confronting scene that they all have with each other, being like it's the found family thing. It's these siblings that are fighting with each other and getting under each other's skin, but at the end of the day, they've chosen to be a family. And another part that I really liked and I think works really well with this version of the story that we're getting, with this version of Gamora that we're now dealing with, is her she's now the one that has to relearn that. She's now the one that, kind of took on the Nebula role almost, where she's coming into this group that she doesn't remember anything about. She doesn't understand the dynamic of found family. And you're getting that juxtaposed with that moment that you talked about with Nebula when she realizes that Rocket is okay. And you see how much she, as the ultimate outsider when we first met her, has really accepted this found family and they've accepted her. And I think it's in that moment that you really get it. You really get just how invested she's let herself be and how much she's let herself open up to accepting that kind of love, which is such a huge character arc from where we first met her. But now you're getting Gamora coming in and just not understanding it, not wanting anything to do with it. And slowly throughout the movie, you do see her start to get it. But what I love about that is she gets it and then she's still able to move on. Because I think this version of Gamora needs to do that. The Gamora we grew to love would never have done that. But as they were saying throughout the movie, this is not the Gamora you want it to be. This is not the Gamora you know. This is a different person. And by having her slowly start to understand the dynamic of the found family, but then deciding that it's not for her, that she has her own found family, and kind of realizing that in the last scene we see of her, she looks happier than I think we ever saw her throughout the entire film. And I think she kind of is taking what she saw with the Guardians and realizing that she is able to have that, but it's not our Gamora and it's not with that group anymore, which I just thought was such an interesting way to go with that story.
You explained that really well, and I don't know how I'm meant to follow it up. But
So-
I'm sorry.
You just like the next question I was going to ask, and you just answered that. So
what is it?
I'm
which,
sorry.
which was, do you think like should Gamora have been in this movie? And I think you just answered yes.
Well,
Yeah.
to me, yes.
100%.
I think so.
Like-
I know you have something to say about it.
Gamora's death in Infinity War is so perfect in that movie. I think it is so well handled, so perfectly handled. I don't know if she needed to come back. Now, having seen Guardians 3, I don't know if she did. What you just explained makes go, okay, cool. Now
Yeah.
I get it now. I'm
Because
like, okay.
it's also certainly an emotional point for Star-Lord.
No, it is. But I think we could.
Here's the thing. I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I think we still could have told this version of this story where Star-Lord has to deal with the fact that she's gone. I think you could definitely do that in a movie without her physically in it. There's a version of that story that you can absolutely tell. I just don't know, like, on the spot, like, how you would do it. Like, there's a way you could do it. I'm just not sure with a medium of visual storytelling how you do it if she's not there, unless you're going to heavily do like flashbacks or something, maybe.
Yeah.
And there's already enough flashbacks with Rocket. So
Well, right. Or you could have it focus more. Again, it would rely on flashbacks though. If you focused more on like his grandfather,
That's
and
what I
stuff.
was thinking. Like, because where he ultimately ends up, that's where I'm more thinking. It's interesting to me that they don't focus on that. Like, because him going, I'm going to go back home, didn't really quite have the emotional
True.
kick
Same.
for me of like you're going home, because one, he's been to Earth before. Like he's been to Earth since. Now, admittedly, it was during the Avengers and didn't really count, but like it isn't the there isn't the emotional. I think because it isn't tied into the final battle or isn't tied into the actual emotional climax of the movie. You don't really quite feel it when he lands at Earth for the first time.
I would agree. I wasn't very committed to that storyline. I also
Yeah.
think because they definitely focus on how he is his romantic, like emotional beats with Gamora more than like his familial. Like in this movie, at least, I think they probably touch on the familial more in Guardians 2. But
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily think that him going back home hit me very hard emotionally, but I do like the way that they made his character deal with it through about 3/4 of the movie. So basically, they spent 3/4 of his character arc in the movie with him still trying to cling on to the old Gamora and trying to see if there's a way he can turn this new Gamora into the old Gamora or convince her, to give them a chance or whatever. Like, he's going through, all the stages. He's like in denial and he's grief and he's in all the, he's going through all the, he's going through all the stages. And then, this is one of the moments in the movie that I think balances humor and emotion perfectly, but that's also because Dave Bautista is a genius. But where Mantis is like, you have to go talk to him, and he's like, life is like a lake and the lily pads and you need
That
to
was
learn how
epic.
to swim. And he's like, did you just use a metaphor? I didn't think you were capable. He's like, oh, I know all the metaphor. And then anyway, I think Dave Bautista is just so good in that moment. But my point being, I do think it's interesting that they have his character really grapple with the fact that he's just not going to let go of it. And then it gets to a point where he kind of realizes, like, I do still have someone left, and I've completely just abandoned them this whole time. And if there's a chance that they're still around, Like, that's where I need to go. And I think the reason that I was okay with how it went, and maybe this is not the right way to look at it, to me it wasn't meant to really pack a big emotional punch, because you get that with Rocket, and I also think you get that with Batista mostly. But I think for me it was more meant to kind of be uncomfortable and awkward, and more of like a, because, you know, the end of the movie is basically Star-Lord will return.
Yeah,
So I
like-
think it was more of an introduction rather than like a
True.
big emotional gut punch. To
True.
me, I'm not saying that anyone's wrong for feeling like it should have had one and doesn't, but I think the reason it didn't really register to me as like, oh, that should have been more emotional, I think to me the point was like more of an introduction into the new version of Star-Lord that they're clearly wanting to show us eventually. And it being more like a fish out of water, like learning to swim, like being thrown back into this thing where it's not really an emotional
Yeah.
thing from his side. Clearly his grandfather's emotional about it, but from Star-Lord's perspective, it's more like shock almost. And he doesn't really have like an emotional reaction because he doesn't really know how. But that's more of like how I read like that whole.
No, you definitely cleared up my thoughts about that. So thank you.
I'm just here to help everyone sort out their own problem. Okay, here's something I want to bring up though, because I know you have controversial thoughts about this,
God.
Jacob.
Oh yeah.
We need to talk about Mother and Mother Elizabeth Debicki and Adam Warlock, because that was a whole thing in and of itself. And
I could have done without it.
Yeah, I know you didn't like it, but just the fact that you have Will Poulter sitting there looking at Elizabeth Debicki and be like, Mother, that's kind of my favorite thing ever. Because
She is Mother.
she is Mother, first of all, but there's like got to be like what, like maybe a 10-year age difference between the two of them.
The Adam Warlock just didn't work for me. I get the humor, but I don't know, that type of humor just I didn't find his character interesting. I didn't find it funny. I was kind of really annoyed when he was on screen. I'm not gonna lie, when they killed him at the start, I was kind of hoping. When they did at the start, I was like, oh my God, that's going to piss off everybody and it's going to be amazing. Like, I was kind of like, because since the first Guardians movie, everyone's been like, we want Adam Warlock, and he comes on, he fights the Guardians for half a second and then dies. That would have just been like 5 stars. I don't care what else you do in this movie. That is some baller move. I did not care for him anytime he came on screen. It was just bored.
Okay, here's my thing. First of all, they're both 11 out of 10 beautiful human beings. Like,
Correct.
just looking at them is like so much to take in the best possible way. I just kind of love, and the villain, we'll get into the villain as well, because I know you had some things to say about that. But I love, there's even a scene where they talk about it in the movie where the villain is like, you're beautiful, but there's nothing going on in your head, basically, is what he says to them. And I'm just sitting there going, the empty-headed beautiful. Just keep letting Will Poulter fly around and look pretty. And he doesn't need to do anything else. Like, I'm totally fine with just empty head, beautiful. Just that's, you know what? That's fine. I'm good with that. But I wasn't annoyed. Like, I get why it may have been annoying, but to me, like, I just thought it was funny. Like, I just thought it was stupid funny. Like, I just had fun with it. I don't know.
I think the empty-headed humor needs to be really clever for me. I just don't find empty-headed humor funny. Like,
That's fair.
like,
But I don't know. I think they were in just enough of the movie, but not too much where it didn't get annoying to me. Like, every once in a while they would step in and just be like kind of dumb, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. I don't know.
Okay, I agree with Taylor. I hate agreeing with Jacob, but I also agree with Jacob. I really I did really enjoy that storyline and that kind of like thing, and like having Adam Warlock come in and then like just fuck shit up, and that was epic. And just every time I say it now, I'm
keeps
so
going up.
self-conscious of it.
Do you now know how self-conscious
Adore.
I am about Adore? Like, I have tried very hard not to say it.
Except no one's told me to stop saying epic. It's just me. Someone actually told you shut the fuck up. Anyway,
Shout out to our listeners for telling us to shut the fuck up.
but yeah, so like that opening scene with him was really cool, and from there I was kind of like whiplash of like how different his character was, and maybe like I don't read comics, like maybe he's just like that, but so maybe people saw that coming. But yeah, the kind of like him actually just kind of being not very bad. I don't know, like it was kind of cool. But I also think his character is very much set up, which is where like the Marvel side of this movie comes in of like they're trying to set something else up because they can't just have a finale film. It has to also connect to something else.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of pissed me off about Adam Warlock. But other than that, I will look at sexy Will Poulter all day.
Yep.
That's fine.
Yep.
You're gonna hate me for what I'm about to say though, because I
What?
looked up how the age difference. How, you said 10 years.
I said it would have to be probably like around there.
It's 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Elizabeth Debicki's
Yeah.
2 years older than
Yeah, which is honestly, that's why I love it. I love so much that you have Will Poulter, who's literally the same age as her, being like mother.
As he should.
And I love that she has no prosthetic. Like, I just love that they're like, fucking you better. They're beautiful, and this is how nobody ages, and that's mother, and I don't know what to tell you. I love that. And also I love, like, it is kind of annoying because it is clearly like a Marvel setup thing, but if it means we're going to get more Will Poulter, I don't really fucking care. Whatever.
Is he like rumored to be in anything like Adam Warlock, like gonna be in anything
Like,
else?
he likely will.
Probably?
He probably will.
Okay. I was
I
just
mean,
wondering if there was like
they-
obviously something that's already been announced that he's gonna be in.
They were very, very, very quiet on where this movie ends.
Okay.
For obvious reasons. But they were very quiet on who would still be around. So there's not really been anything that's come out from all this afterwards because of where no one knows where this movie was going to end. But yeah.
What did we think of? I'm pretty sure the first time it's ever happened in any of the movies, but we got Groot saying something other than "I am Groot."
Yeah.
Mm.
What did he say again? It was something
I
really
love you
wholesome.
guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
that
says,
was,
I love you guys. Yeah. He
It was-
technically has said, we are Groot.
Okay, but
But
that
yeah,
doesn't
no,
count.
it doesn't count.
Fuck
He says,
you.
I love you guys.
You're lucky I don't punch you in
I
the
know.
face for
That's
that.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah, that was like, oh, but that was also like,
I don't know. I think
it was definitely like a nod to the crowd, being
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
you want to know what he says.
I think the end of the movie was really well handled.
yeah.
I
me
think
too.
everything, like, I think that them disbanding, I think you get the big, like, the cheesy, I love, okay, it's such a 2000s movies to end on a cheesy dance number, and him going 2000s music with
Yes.
I thought that
Yes.
was, okay, you
I was
get
actually
away
so
with
I was
this.
like, oh, because he like when he was like looking at the iPod and then he chose 2000s. I was like, oh my god, we're entering this like millennium. Okay.
Yeah.
Like-
I'm like, okay, yes, you get away with this because that is a 2000s movie type thing. Like every
100%.
Yeah.
2000s movies ended with the cheesy dance number, and
So
that's what you're
cool.
doing. So you can get away with that. I think it works really well. No Guardians, no one died,
I know.
which I am shocked by.
I was expecting
I'm-
one.
Yeah.
If Rocket died, I don't know what I would have done.
Well, I said from the start, I didn't think Rocket or Groot were going. I always thought they were safe because one, it's a voice actor. You can rehire a voice actor for someone else if Bradley Cooper or Vin Diesel don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah,
Whereas in
the other phase actors
the
are
others,
harder.
yeah, like Gamora's more like I know Zoe Saldana said, oh, I'd love to see the character be played by someone else and still be around. She's not. Gamora's done.
Yeah.
We're most likely never getting Gamora again.
At least not for a while.
No, unless
Unless they do the one thing you could do if they wanted to keep Gamora around, it would be fucking you could do it, whatever. Rules don't matter. You could go younger. Like you could
Yeah.
reboot with a younger Gamora.
yeah.
Because fucking at this point it's I don't fucking care about continuity. It's a comic book. Just do
Yeah, I
fucking
know.
whatever you want.
But that's more like so the two CGI characters I didn't think were going anywhere because
Yeah.
they're CGI characters and you're not having to pay an act. You're not having to pay a actual actor who wants $20 million. There, you
Yeah.
are paying a voice actor. And now,
Yeah.
admittedly, it's Bradley Cooper, and he can ask for that. But if you don't want to pay that, you can get another
Or if he's
voice
just
actor,
done with
or
it,
or if
yeah.
he's just done or whatever. Like you,
Mm.
there is always. So I was like, Marvel are not going to let you kill them. I'm shocked they didn't
Do
kill
you-
anyone.
Do you think Batista's done?
Batista's done. Batista is
Yeah, I think
absolutely
so,
done.
too.
I think him and Marvel had a falling out after what happened with Gunn.
Mm.
Like I thought,
Yeah.
like I think that, after everything that happened there, he is done with Marvel.
And honestly, I don't blame him. I think he has such an interesting career trajectory ahead of him. He doesn't need to be just doing Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for sure the only thing they've quote unquote confirmed with like the ending fucking title card is that we're getting more Star-Lord. That's literally
Yeah, is
all-
that like Star-Lord as in as we know him as Chris Pratt?
yeah.
yeah.
But like where and why? I thought the whole reason of this movie was to be the end of all of these
I think
characters.
it's the end of I think it was the end
Of
of
Guardians,
this
but,
Guardians
like-
of this
Of this
iteration.
version of
But
the
I think we're now
Guardians.
going to start.
Because I think
Which
we're-
I don't know if I like that because while I love the Guardians, I'm like, if you're gonna end something, just end it.
I don't know. I think because they're planning on doing Young Avengers, I think they're also going to do Guardians 2.0, which is Warlock, Rocket, Groot,
Yeah.
whatever the fucking Sean Gunn's character.
Yeah.
I don't fucking
Crag-
know his name.
Kraglin, I think. Yeah.
Craiglin.
But I think that they're going to do Young Avengers and then this
Got it.
version of Guardians. Probably. I'm assuming that's just me making shit
Which
up.
like I'll
but-
take more Rocket and Groot. Like I was really
Yeah.
sad. So I was like, don't tell me this is the last time I'm ever gonna see Rocket and Groot on screen.
I know.
But yeah.
The other thing I did want to bring up, and I just because there's so much to talk about, I just haven't talked about it yet. But it was such a breath of fresh air to see like creatures and humans and whoever, like everything with like actual practical makeup that looked awesome.
Yeah.
Like you could tell when someone has face paint on and actual prosthetics, and like everyone looked great. And there was maybe one or two kind of wonky moments, but the visual effects also were such a step up from what we've been getting recently in Marvel films. Like the movie just looked good. It felt immersive. It didn't feel like you were just looking at someone on a green screen. It felt like there were like sets a lot of the time. Again, there were a couple wonky moments, but for the most part, like it felt like you were in this world. You looked at a character and didn't go, oh, well, that's just someone with a bunch of fucking dots on their face. Like it was so good, and that's something I really appreciate about what James Gunn does. Like it just felt, I was like, oh, thank you. I don't have to sit here and every 20 minutes go, well, that's a shitty green screen, or well, that person's not in the same room as that. Like it just,
Yes.
I know it's such a low bar, but like Jesus.
Seeing this made me like mad. I was like, why can he do this and no
Yeah.
one else can?
Yeah.
Literally no one else can do this. Like, what do you mean? Like, is
Yeah.
it that difficult? Like,
Yeah. Like I think this is probably one of the I'm really curious where the MCU goes from here, because look, the next one's Marvel's. We'll see what happens with that one, and then we get New World Order and start going into like the build up for a Kang movie that we don't know what's happening now,
Yep.
and so like it is going to be like the next 2 years for the MCU are going to be very interesting. Part of me still care, and again, the other big problem, we have a writer's strike going on
Yeah.
right now.
So
That is going to impact this. Like
most of the movies are already pretty shocking.
Yeah.
So
like, it's gonna get real interesting real quick. Like, yeah.
yeah.
is Marvel's done?
Yeah.
Marvel's is done.
Okay.
Marvel's is done. New World Order's shooting. It might be finished shooting.
I figured Marvel's would be safe.
The
yeah,
biggest one
after
that
next year.
the single biggest one that's going to get impacted for me that I look at and go, ooh, outside of Kang, outside of Loki season 2 and everything that's going on with Kang the Conqueror, with Kang Dynasty right now, the biggest one is going to be the Daredevil series,
Yeah.
because that's currently shooting and that is 20 episodes.
Shit.
they wouldn't have finished every single episode.
No.
That is because that's being shot like a network show. So
Right.
that's gonna get
Interesting,
real
okay.
interesting. The Daredevil show is. I wouldn't be surprised if we're told it's delayed 12 months because that was the other thing you got from the original writer's strike, which was
Delayed projects.
projects would either, hey, it's only 13 episodes and then we've cut the rest for next season, or you got something like 24, which went the entire season's just been delayed 12 months. They'd done about 8 episodes. And normally they do the 8, but they would still catch up through the whole thing. They just went, nope, we're delaying the full thing. And so the show was never impacted by it, but you got the delay, and that was what was impacted. So I'm curious where Marvel and where a lot of these other projects go with that type of thing. Do they just start delaying the projects? Do they turn around and go, no, we got to do this. So we could get some bad movies, and we've been getting them bad anyway.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
We'll see, I guess.
Does anyone have any other final thoughts?
Just the fact that this is like an animal rights movie is epic for vegetarians like me. And the one moment that made me cry was like all the animals in the cages and Rocket is like looking at them and he goes up to the little raccoons. I was like, no, this is too much.
That was well done. No, I actually, the moment right after that's what is not got me like that I think is a really great moment which is where come on, we've got to go. No, we've got to take them. No, we've got all the kids off. No, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then and then them are all coming out. I thought that was actually like
That was really
that was a
beautiful.
really nice moment. I thought that was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like this movie. I think this movie is really well made. It's got some problems, but again, it's the best MCU movie we've had in a long time. So yeah, really, kudos to James Gunn. Kudos to everyone there who worked on this film. You did a great job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Slay. Agreed.
All right, later, where can they find you online?
Oh, I said I would come back with like one handle across everything, but
It's been 3 weeks.
There's problems with that. I have a name. I can't. Anyway, on TikTok you can find me at Laney Film. Also on Twitter, and then on Instagram and Letterboxd, you can find me at Alayna Violet. You can find all of us at Lights on the Screen, basically everywhere.
Taylor.
You can find me pretty much everywhere at Finally Tailored, Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, just all of the places. I'm probably there. So,
You guys can find me pretty much everywhere at Jacob London. I have no idea what we're talking about next week yet because
Next week we have Book Club 2, the next chapter, and Love Again. So.
Well, I have no idea what we'll be talking about next week, so we'll figure that.
I've watched the first Book Club movie twice, so
Oh my god!
I don't know why, but I have. So I'm very excited for Book Club 2, where the girls go to Italy.
Oh god!
But no, we'll figure that out.
Well, we will figure that out. Until then, guys, this has been the Lights on the Screen podcast. Thank you very much for listening.